Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing swell, Bob. How you doing this wonderful day?
I am mostly irritated. Glad to be here. Glad people are watching. Glad and excited to have our guest on. Tyler Chin Tanner is going to be on tonight. I'm very excited to talk to him. He's a wonderful person. He's a really good comic guy, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. um, I want to start out talking tonight. We're gonna get to Tyler pretty quickly, but I do want to touch on some things if we can. And I appreciate everybody who's here, who listens, who comes to let us do what we do. It's really a blessing for us. Um, Mike, you had a column that came out yesterday on popculturesquad.com about Daredevil Born Again, which is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Yes,
It's not quite finished. I think there's one episode to go. Is
one or two. Yeah.
one or two? Okay. I started watching it today. I've watched two episodes so far. Um, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about what you feel about the show, and I want to talk a little bit about Daredevil, a little bit about the show. I think we're going to get into something else after that. So go ahead.
As my column states, I'm a fan of the show, and arguably, it's my favorite MCU show.
We'll call it
Um,
MCU.
yeah. Well, I think it
It's
is.
now officially MCU.
Yes, it's now official. Well, and the fact that it is now officially MCU is is value added. When he popped up in Spider-Man, that was great. But actually, the focus of my column yesterday wasn't so much on Charlie Cox, who's brilliant and who plays the lead, and therefore is the costume superhero sometimes, but on Vincent D'Onofrio, who has become, and this is so hard to achieve. I'm so glad he worked so hard for it. He's become my favorite film villain of all time. Now, I've loved his work since I don't know when. First time I saw it, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, longer. Very gifted, very broad range, very serious, but in a very heartwarming way. And those are wonderful attributes to give to the Kingpin, because he's evil. Even when he's trying hard not to be, he, sort of like our current president, knows what he wants, and he's going to get it. And it comes from his worldview, and his worldview is from being New York City's greatest mobster. So how do you make that person the mayor of New York City? Well, they did it in the comics, and it was interesting, but like many comic storylines, it just went on a little bit too long.
Sure.
I get that, and that's okay. This is what it is. It hasn't finished yet, so I don't know how it's going to end. And there's a second season to Born Again.
Yes.
So I don't know how that's going to tie in. But his work is just brilliant. He has replaced Charles Middleton as my all-time favorite film villain. He played Ming the Merciless on the Flash Gordon serials of the 1930s, and also Chico Marx's prosecutor in Duck Soup, among other villainous roles. And I've always loved him. I mean, he's the reason why I became a Flash Gordon fan when I was 10 years old, because my cheap TV channel in Chicago was running the serials because they didn't have to pay for them. So seeing an actor whose work I loved and have loved for decades play such a wonderful role for which he is well suited, that's a wonderful thing for me. So I'm just enjoying the hell out of this show.
I agree with you. I really am enjoying it. I was a fan. I've been a fan of, in by using the word fan, I enjoy. I'm entertained by by the Netflix Marvel things that we had, for the most part. I liked especially Daredevil. I think Vincent D'Onofrio is one of my favorite actors in general. I think
Absolutely.
he is a very, very talented actor, and you can tell how much he works at his craft and how he's able to be a chameleon in so many different roles. I love him. I think he's my favorite. I was telling you earlier, I think he's my favorite comic book villain come to screen. I'd be hard pressed to find another in terms of the depiction and accuracy. I want to talk a little bit about the tone, though, and this is what's kind of I probably wasn't the right day for me to watch this. My day started out with a good friend of mine, someone who I've known since I was 8. She was let go at NIH today, the National Institute of Health. She's been a federal employee for 23 years. And I'm going to read from her Facebook post. She said, "Today I learned that I and my colleagues will no longer have the opportunity to do this important work. If you support this method of making things efficient, please know that this affects the lives of real hardworking, yes, people who are dedicated to their jobs and helping the public. You should also hope that you and your family members do not need access to such information or get sick or need a clinical trial for that matter, because these services will not be there."
Yeah.
And
yeah,
this is upsetting.
Not just for personal reasons, although I get that, and
Sure.
I'm
It is
truly sorry for you and your friend.
it is
but for
personal.
all of us.
Right. I go on from there. That is terrible. Thousands and thousands of hardworking federal employees lost their jobs today. That is not a good thing. And I am not going to sit here and I'm not going to use names. I'm not going to throw epithets at people. I just want to say,
I'll do that. Can I do that?
We need to pay attention. There is another story that came last night from the Atlantic about Kilmer Abrego Garcia, who came to the United States legally in 2011, was abducted by federal officers and sent accidentally to an El Salvador prison, which he cannot be returned from because we can't get him back. He committed no crime. He has never committed a crime. He's here legally. His wife and children live here. And yet this is where we are.
And
these are things. He is not the only one. There are plenty of other people who are there innocently. This lack of due process is infuriating. In the midst of this day, Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey, was on the Senate floor filibustering, making a speech to raise concerns that he has for the current executive administration. He said something as he was approaching a over a half a century old record for filibustering, which he broke and now is the record holder of. The person who held that record was Strom Thurmond, who's a notorious senator from the South, who was performing his filibuster in antagonization and in against the Civil Rights Acts of 1957. He was trying to prevent them from being voted on and wanted to continue to speak until those acts would not be passed. And what Cory Booker said is, "I'm not here to hate on Strom Thurmond. I am here despite Strom Thurmond. I am here because as powerful as he was, the people were more powerful." And that is what we need to focus on.
Yes.
It is and we need to not underestimate the insidiousness of this administration. It is fundamentally aimed at hurting most people. Do not underestimate the danger of the administration's attack on lawyers. That is very important. The only weapon that the people have against the might of the federal government is the law. And without soldiers in that fight, the war will be lost by the people and won by those in power.
Luckily, some lawyers think that doing that job, the job you just mentioned, is their main purpose in life. I've worked with a lot of those lawyers. I respect the hell out of them. I mean, they're lawyers, they have big egos. Okay, that's what gets you through court. I got that. That's fine. But what is breathtaking to me is how within 10 weeks, Donald Trump turned the United States of America into what he previously referred to as a shithole nation. This is a shithole nation. You and I are about to go pretty close to the Canadian border this weekend, up at Ithaca, New York. And I'll bet you we don't see very many Canadian citizens at that comic book convention because they don't know where they're going to wind up. They come in from, let's say, Toronto, and they're in Ithaca, or they have to cross the border into New York State, and they wind up in El Salvador, and nobody ever hears from them again. There's a technical phrase for it. They have been disappeared.
Yeah. I apologize. I want to apologize right up front for anybody who's joining us at this point. We're a little bit miffed today, and we're letting it out there. Sometimes, we have to take advantage of this platform that we have, and I want you guys to hear it. It's too important to just ignore it constantly. We try and keep everything light, and we try and focus on comics. We have a great guest on tonight, and please stick with us because we're getting to him pretty soon. But I think one of the things I said to Mike just before we went on the air, and I want to kind of talk about it, is that, and we're gonna bring it back to the comics because it comes back to Daredevil. Mob bosses are not good political leaders. They do not have the people's interest in mind. They have their interest in mind. And if you were to ask the president what his heart of hearts, what he would want to be, it would be a mob boss. And that is the parallels between Daredevil Born Again with the mob boss as the mayor of New York City, spoiler, sorry, and the president of the United States wanting very much to be a mob boss. The whole racket that he's got going on with taking the wealthiest law firms off the playing board is excellent planning on whoever's part that is, but also devastating to the country.
And that's the point.
Oh, I understand it's the point. That's why I'm saying do not lose sight of that.
I would rather have the Kingpin that we've seen, at least in these 6 episodes, as president. I can see you smiling already. As president of the United States right now, than the walking animated turd that is in the White House.
Well, the only reason I say that is because I know that Wilson Fisk, despite his massive amount of faults and foibles, does have the capacity to care for others. I don't know that the other person does.
Yes, I think that that's true, and I have a stronger opinion about the other person. But yes, I think that that's true.
I'm just not saying it. I have a very strong opinion.
I understand. Inside Fisk, there's a human being somewhere. Now, it may have been clouded up by all of his experiences, which is true for all of us, and his were unique. But at least there's something there that has some sense of humanity. Mr. Trump does not.
So before we bring in Tyler, which we're going to do, Bill's got a question, and I'm going to throw it in. Thanks, Bill, for being here. Thanks for watching all the time. Which is violent, darker, the Netflix or the Disney Plus? So I'm taking it you haven't seen it. So I will say I've only seen 2 episodes. The first, the there's probably more violence in the Netflix one, especially in the first 2 episodes. But the violence that is seen in the Disney Plus is way more than I thought it would be. And I would say it's fairly equal from my perspective.
Yes, I haven't gone the distance so far. Six episodes, I believe. I would agree with that. Obviously, it's taking Matt Murdock time to get back in the costume, back in uniform. And as he does, the level of violence and action goes up a bit. Although, we still have the Punisher coming down the road, so I'm sure it's going to be explosive.
And I want to take one more thing while we're talking about Daredevil. It's 2 things. One is it's called Born Again, and it's very much not the Born Again story. It is not a retelling of the Born Again story, right? It's not that at all.
Oh, that's true.
So, I mean, the Born Again, which is a great Daredevil run. It is a fantastic Daredevil run. Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli and Klaus Johnson and all them, great work. But it is not that. It uses the name. It is, to be honest, in some ways more similar to Chip Zdarsky's run on Daredevil at mostly because of the Kingpin being the mayor, but there's some other aspects of him wanting to not be in the role. There's some things that go along with that, but it's also not that. But it does have a similar tone. There's a similar tone.
It is a successor in thought and in atmosphere. Absolutely. Yes. And it's also a Squill story, which of course Marvel has just reprinted again. And Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil, wrote the foreword.
I understand. I'm very excited about it.
And I think that's cool. Now, I've had those types of people write forewords for me in the past, and I always thought it was cool. So,
it is.
This is great. I got to read his intro.
My youngest son my youngest son Luke met Charlie Cox. He got a autograph with photo autograph with him, and he was very pleasant with him. So I think that's fantastic.
Something about British actors, particularly who play superheroes, there just seem to be the nicest. Yeah, we have a lot of those. It's weird, but they seem to be the nicest people. I'm a big Peter Capaldi fan. I have been since his days doing punk rock, which may surprise some people. When he was touring the States to support Doctor Who, everybody I know, Mark Wheatley, who actually did a cover for IDW, I think, or Titan, featuring Peter, everybody I know, and myself, would say, this is a wonderful human being. I could have dinner with this person and have a great time. So I love it when they do that. A lot of the Star Trek people I've met over the years, same way, and they're not British, so I can wave the American flag a little bit here.
That's fair. All right. Thanks everybody for indulging us in this morass of bad news that we've been dealing with for the past 10 weeks. Hopefully it will get better. We're going to start getting better right now by having a fantastic conversation with one of our favorite people. Tyler Chintanner is joining the SquadCast. Hey, Tyler. Oh, you're muted. Let me get you on mute.
Oh,
How you doing?
hello. How are you?
Good. Glad.
Hey,
Glad.
Tyler.
Trip down memory lane. I like that intro.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's fun. It's been 20 years at a Wave Blue World.
Yeah, this is our 20-year anniversary.
That's part of why I wanted to have you on. I wanted to talk about the journey you've been on.
Okay.
It's for people who don't know,
Yeah.
you are co-publisher of
Cool.
Wave Blue World with your wife Wendy Chintanner,
Mhm.
and you're a writer, you're an editor, you do so much for your particular publishing company, but you also do a lot for other aspects of comics. What is it about you that made comics be such a big part of your life for the last 20 years?
Well, I mean, it's been a big part of my life for a lot longer than 20 years. I mean,
Sure.
I grew up on it. They were so influential to my education, to my formation of character, to my love of art and craft and storytelling. Um, and I was almost amiss, like I veered off a little bit because I was a public school teacher for a short career, 5 years before going to the Kubert School. But it was doing that made me realize that I wasn't going down my true passion in life. Um, Made me realize what I did want to do. And since then, so for 20 years, pretty much, I formed the company just in between my second and third year at the Kubert School. So I still had another year of school to go, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So why not launch it while still at the school and having Joe Kubert as an advisor and everything. So no, I just love the medium and the craft. It's always been how I think about storytelling. I don't know that I could write a novel. I could try, but like I just think in sequences of images. That's how stories come to me. So, yeah, I love the craft. I love everybody that's involved in the industry. To me, it's just such a community. I am a publisher, so we publish our own things, but I just love every aspect of it. I'm always paying attention to creators, no matter what publisher they're at, mainstream, indie, and just want to be involved in supporting as many creators and projects as I can.
Good for you. You're actually something of a freedom fighter when it comes to independent comics and self-publishing.
Mhm.
That's what you do.
Right.
And you've been doing it for 20 years
Mhm.
since you're in the middle of school.
Yeah.
And to me, you like paying your dues pay forward, you know? And I really admire that. What
Mhm.
made you decide to do it on your own? I mean, and by on your own, I'm referring to with your wife.
Right. Oh, yeah, of course. And well, having her as a support, meeting her in art school and having her think this was a great idea. Like you pitch that idea, like, what if I just form my own label and publish my own comics, my way, and having her be behind that and be positive about that was a big help. Um, I think I knew I didn't want to compromise how things were done. I mean, getting to talk to so many instructors and at the Cooper School, and especially Joe, and I know how he had to deal with creative control, editorial control, working with companies. I just really got the idea that if I start doing a project and bring it to somebody else and think it's going well, or they tell me it needs to go in this direction, or you should change it a little bit this way. And actually, I did have a little bit of experience because I did pitch American Terrorist to Image, and actually had a really nice conversation with Eric Stevenson about it. But he had his views of what I should do with it, and I'm not like against compromise, but like I guess I was like, I don't know, this is really just showing me that I just want to make sure that what I put out there, in terms of message, in terms of final product, how it looks, how it's released, if I can have control of that, I that's what I want. That's what I would prefer above everything else.
You bet. That is the glory and the freedom and the purpose of independent publishing, as far as I'm concerned. I understand, and I've worked with publishers more. I mean, I don't know whether you call First Comics an independent publisher or what, but certainly DC is not. And if you do it their way because it's their money.
Right.
Most of these folks are nice folks. I mean, they may have strange agendas, but they're nice folks. Joe Kubert is a god to me, not just as a writer artist, not just as an educator, but as a human being. And I would like to take this opportunity to note the passing of one of the teachers there at the Kubert School, and a comics form legend. Hy Eisman died a couple of days ago, I guess.
Yeah.
He was getting up to like 100. He was
98. It said, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have Hy when you were there?
Yeah. For 2 years. Yeah.
The idea that you can go to a school and be exposed to that depth of knowledge is wonderful. Joe will probably be best remembered for the school because that's what lives on. And his work is impeccable and brilliant and great. But his greatest role in my book is his taking on the responsibility of being an educator for a medium that needed it desperately. Look at all the great talent we've gotten out of the Kubert School. My God.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's like
we can't go 3 episodes without a Kubert School graduate on this,
right.
or at least somebody who went on the,
that's true. Or teacher.
Well, somebody who's affiliated with it in some way. It's important. And I don't mean to diminish. There are plenty of other great schools that are teaching comic form. Most I think in large degree because Joe made it okay.
Right.
Yes, although School of Visual Arts and places like that.
I understand that, but they're. I don't mean to diminish them. I'm saying that the School of Visual Arts was there. People learned things, but teaching comic book lettering and comic book, stuff. I think it really. The reason the school existed was because it was missing.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Joe asked me if I would want to ever teach a class there. This is obviously many, many years ago. And I said, yeah, I'd like to teach a class on how to survive working for organized publishers without wanting to kill one of them. And he laughed his ass off and said, yeah, I don't know if we're going to do that.
One of the things about, we'll probably get to this again, but one of the things about A Wave Blue World as an entity and as a force, for lack of a better word, is that you have taken on so many projects and published so many projects that are aimed to support the LGBTQ plus TA plus community. All the letters are relevant. We don't need to eliminate any of them. And I know that it's something. The projects that you guys have supported have won back-to-back GLAAD awards. Just recently, this past week, you guys you won the GLAAD award for comics, and you won last year as well. What is it about that type of book that makes it a home for at A Wave Blue World?
Well, for one, I think is one of the most challenged topics. I support all diversity in comics, and they certainly have their challenges and things like that. But in terms of really a book banning, sure, I guess you can get into the history of certain ethnicities and things like that. But I don't think you have that same level, which doesn't mean that I don't want to continue supporting everything else in every way. But I'm talking about just really getting the full brunt of banning and even miscategorizing it, because LGBTQ often gets labeled as being sexually explicit or deviant or things like that, when we're trying to do the projects that we do are just very like normalizing, and these are just romance tales or they're coming of age tales, and that's why we try to stay away from the more erotic or mature side of things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just because we're trying to get these out into spaces where they can't be challenged, at least not without good reason. Because look, we're just trying to tell these stories about people, about their romance, about love. And someone coming from it as not being in the LGBTQ community, but just very supportive as I have been all my life. When I read these stories, I find them very moving, and I connect with them because they're very human stories. So they've just always meant a lot to me. I want to see books like these, stories like these, not just through us. Hopefully, more. Just like we were talking with Joe with the school, like the ideas for more publishers and more creators to be able to do this stuff and to put books out like this.
There's also an advantage that you have playing on that field, which is that you get to tell stories that haven't been told over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And stories and concepts and approaches that some folks are just totally unused to, but are interested in. It's part of the same earth we all live in.
Mhm.
So the folks who are morally opposed for some reason on about any of the queer issues, they're going to find stories about that to be X-rated
Mhm.
by definition.
Right.
And there's no other valid response to these bigots who are trying to ram their religion down your throat
Mhm.
than mind your own fucking business.
Right.
That's it.
Mhm.
You can tell I have some sort of political roots, can't you?
Yeah, and that's sort of my approach. Like, as much as I cannot, as much as I don't have to engage in the debates, but put the material out there, and because my goal is to reach the audience who will appreciate that, and that's the
Right.
challenge, is not to be stopped by those obstacles. So, the more I can keep just pushing through without getting tied up in those obstacles, and I'm not saying that's easy, but that's the idea, more than to fight this battle of ideas, I suppose, or viewpoints. Not to get too much into that, because it's not even based off of logic or reason.
When I was with DC in the 70s, I used to get into conversations with the guy who was running the Comics Code Authority, which
Oh,
was still
yeah.
in effect in those days. Now, he was not, Hitler. He was a good guy.
Okay.
He was also born around the turn of 4 centuries ago.
Okay.
But that's cool, and we were able to have good conversations about that. There is nothing that you have ever published, I think, and very little that I have published, that would have survived his desk.
Mhm.
And that was the 70s, which is 50 years ago, and I recognize that, and I feel that, not comfortably, but I feel that. And it's nice to notice the progress we've made. But all you got to do is turn on the television, dial it to any channel, just pick a number 1 to 100,
Mhm.
200, and you'll find people who just go apeshit at the concept of queer behavior.
Mhm.
You don't like it? Fine. Nobody's asking you to. But as John Stewart said, gay marriage? You mean it's not mandatory? Then what do I care?
Right.
Right.
Go on.
I want to, before we get off this topic, and we may come back, but I do want to applaud you, because I think it's very important for you to be that voice. It's very important that you step into that place where people can feel comfortable bringing projects like that to your.
It can also be dangerous. I respect the risks you're taking.
Mhm. Yeah.
He's tough.
Do my best.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the other things about Away Blue World.
Mhm.
We first, connected on when Maybe Someday was happening.
Mhm.
I did a quick interview with you and Eric and Matt. Is it Matt?
Yeah.
For Pop Culture Squad, and since then, we've met, become friends. But like the concept of what you guys have done for so many of the different anthology projects you guys have put together, whether they're not, whether some have been LGBTQ focused, but others have been different. Just giving opportunities to a lot of different creators who are on their way in or out of the industry. Some people, some with names who have some clout, some people who are just coming up. So many if you look back at the creators in some of your earlier, anthologies, they are now, stars.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is that about, like, for you? Why is that something that you guys embraced throughout your history?
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, I was kind of breaking into the industry myself through the anthologies, and these were people I was meeting or were excited to meet or get to know. We tried not to make it just like a group of friends who like hung out and wanted to make comics together. I mean, that happens because you meet them from working together, but like continually looking for different voices in different avenues, and the Kubert School is one, conventions, but also online, and trying to find international talent and your new talent, but also some veteran people that we maybe have some connections with or have fallen a little bit out of the industry and are looking to do something with the anthology. So, I mean, yeah, the idea is just, I mean, so many different voices and as many as that we can bring together. So we're not like an echo chamber, just repeating ourselves. I think that's good for everybody. So that's been the idea behind that.
Plus, they encourage types of stories that have not been done to death, and many have not been done at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we used to bitch about how American comics were just superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was largely true, although I have a fondness for Harvey. But still, it's all superheroes. Well, it's not. It never really was, but less now than ever before, again, in this country. And the expansion of our editorial repertoire is probably the most exciting thing I continuously watch in the growth of our medium. It's beautiful, and it's because of people like you. So own up to it.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Let's get a little bit. So what was the most challenging experience you had putting one of those anthologies together? Something like, getting Deadbeats, or maybe Someday, or All We Ever Wanted, or like, what was do you have a good story that people don't know when they just get a book at the end? How I know there's got to be a million things that go wrong at the last minute.
So, I mean, so many things. I mean, because that's the thing. You get like 50 creators, and you got creators dropping out. You got creators. I mean, we've had creators that didn't want to work on the anthology and I didn't even think about that, because here we are like curating and finding good talent and just putting together these stories. And all of a sudden one person finds out that somebody else is in the anthology just doing a separate story. And they're like, I refuse to work with that person. So there's lots of little internal politics. And of course there's the greater community when all that stuff was sort of happening, with people getting ousted and things, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, this one person has this problem or this and that. And I'm getting messages like, you can't have this person in your anthology because they did this or that. And then it's like, how do I judge? I'm not saying that, like, some of those things were not were appropriate or whatever, but like I don't know how much I can get into somebody's personal life or fire somebody from an anthology or rip up their contract based off of what somebody Twitter messaged me or something like that, or maybe it wasn't even private. Maybe they made a big thing about it, tagging people and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that was like the most, for sure, in terms of stress on me, it would be something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The problem with an anthology, and I've done more than my share, is that you can't put the book to bed until you have the last page.
Yeah.
So you
There's
could
a
have
lot.
20 contributors, and 19 of them could be on time.
Mhm.
And you don't want to tell those 19 about the 20th, because that
Right. I mean,
20th
that's the
person
thing.
is screwing them up too.
I
So
was
you got to
pushing
be
people on this latest one because we just put together the second Young Men in Love. I was pushing a couple of people hard because I had this initial deadline that was like in December that had, and some people were like rushing to get that done. Oh, so sorry that they're a day late and this like that. And then you have sort of like the next wave and you're pushing them hard, even though because you just want to get those in, even though you're going to have some stragglers even after that.
Sure.
And then, if some that just, keep on, you're waiting for them. And yeah, that's exactly right. You can be waiting on one person to do 3 pages just to have this book done, ready to go to print. Um, and it's a lot like mentally to keep your mind. That's the main thing that like well, at least when I talk about it, I don't necessarily put this on them, but I can't rest mentally. There's a section in my head that I'm supposed to have moved on from, so I can think about other things, whether there are other projects or other stages in the book. And it's so
Yeah.
not so. And then maybe they're thinking, oh well, there's just nothing going on because they haven't turned it in yet. But every day, it's something that's on my agenda list. It's in my mind. Like, when am I going to get this page? What's
What
going to
is
be next?
what is the feeling like when you've gotten the last page and it's out to press?
Oh, it's just such a relief. It you feel there's a sensation that like I don't even anticipate because I know I'm pushing for it. Like, oh, it'll be great to get that done. But when it's finally done, yeah, it's like you breathe easier. Your shoulders are lighter. It's like, oh, that's so nice. And you can start thinking about your next project. Like I was having a hard time getting excited about this project, and I didn't quite know why because I didn't have a lot to do with the previous one because I was just it was just waiting. But as soon as it was finally done and checked off the list, my mind starts working on the next one and the gears start moving again. And I'm like, oh, and that's what it is. It's like holding you back. It's like tethering you back to this previous one. So yeah, that's a challenge of working on anthologies or just multiple projects where you're always got like different, things in the oven in different stages that you're just moving one out to move the other one in and things like that. So it's a challenge, but it's my chosen career. It's what I get to do. So I'm happy that's what I get to stress out about and balance than something that I'm not as passionate about. So that's why I look to that and just when I want to feel better about it, be like, no, this is what you love. You get to do, it's
right.
that's a challenge. It's what you love, but it's also your biggest stress. But I wouldn't.
That's always going to be the case.
Yeah,
That's almost always going to be the case. I have been in that situation all my professional life, no matter what medium I've been in.
Yeah.
So I share your pain, but the beautiful thing, for me at least, is that I relish the catalytic role that we play in that position. To take some wonderful stuff, some wonderful art, some wonderful story, some awesome collaboration, and to get it to fruition. A great feeling. So, Bob, to answer your question from my perspective, it's a lot like getting past constipation.
I was hoping for a different biological function. That would be the analogy there.
Aren't we all?
We'll take that one, I guess. I want to change gears just a little bit, go a little bit more business side of things. Sure. You are a publisher, you make physical copies, physical books, they get distributed to comic shops in places. How is and I know I'm blindsiding you or putting bum rushing you here, but like, can you talk about where Away Blue World sits with the changes to Diamond distributors?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we can get into it. Where do I sit? I'm still waiting to find out what they're going to do. I made the choice to wait it out, to sit it out.
Now, do you guys have an exclusive contract with Diamond? Have you always been distributed directly to Diamond?
Yeah, for the remainder of this year, So I think I probably could have challenged it if I wanted to with the bankruptcy. but it just seemed like it would have been too much dancing around with too many unknown things. So I was actually more motivated by just needing to figure out where exactly Diamond was going to land in all this, what was going to happen with them, so I could make the smartest decision going forward, rather than just try to jump over here or over there to figure out what I would do. It's not like I hadn't been talking to other distributors before, but there just wasn't any open doors. I mean, Lunar grew too fast and was just overwhelmed, and Penguin is it's the big company that owns Marvel, and I know they're doing like Boom and things like that. So I mean, for all the problems that Diamond was having, they were a home for all the small publishers, and if anything, they were only getting more inviting with when I was like, yeah, I'm going to do less. I'm not going to do many comics, and I'm going to maybe do like 2 or 3 books a year. And they're like, all right, whatever. I didn't have some of the same concerns they had the last time. Like, you're not giving enough product, or you're not, doing enough quantities, or this and that. So I was actually, relatively happy with how things were going. So the bankruptcy didn't hit me by that big of a surprise. I mean, there was a day that it just came and was announced, but I was like, okay, I thought that was a possibility. That seemed likely. I had kickstarted Young Men in Love, so I knew I was going to have that out regardless. And that was on, I scheduled that through Diamond for the June release. Still not positive if they're going to distribute it, because I'm just waiting to hear how long this business as usual will last, because you never know with new owners what they'll say. But
have you been contacted by the new owners?
No.
Have you been contacted? Has Alliance reached out to
I don't think the sales is final yet.
Right. No, I mean, yes, that's true. So there's been no.
I think that's true. I don't think it's final.
So I know Image is challenging as well.
Yes, yeah, and that's one of the holdups as well. So until they really own the thing, I don't know that they can make many decisions. I don't know. I mean, I guess they can decide what they're going to do going forward, but I think they want to get in there, see how things run. Hopefully they don't just start chopping things immediately, but I think they're going to look at things and see what makes the most sense for them going forward. I sort of have the feeling they seem more like a merch distributor to me. I think they're more interested in than just like the everything pop culture, which could include comics, but I don't know if they want to become also the publisher for all the little publishers, because that doesn't really fit with the pops and the games and the Pokemon cards. And I've heard retailers feel like, yeah, maybe they should just become the everything else. Like, we got the 2 big tent poles with the Marvel and DC distributor, who have the things smaller than that. And this Alliance Games will have everything from music to toys to statues and things like that. But I don't know where that leaves us. So that's what I'm waiting to find out.
I'm not sure where it leaves the comic book stores either.
Yeah.
Because, it's kind of easy to pick up toy merch and that sort of thing, to order it, if you're really backing a comic book that or a movie perhaps that's tied into. That's all in the same catalog. And as the retailer is going through the catalog, it's like, oh, there's a Supergirl movie coming out. Maybe we should get some Supergirl stuff in the store. Right. Great, wonderful, and I hope they can still make that connection. But if you break it up like that, I think it's harder. But we don't know, because it hasn't been done.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the catch-22 about Diamond and how it always has been. You don't like everybody's eggs in all of one basket, which we found out was a bad deal, or publishers felt was a bad deal, particularly.
Ask any freelancer who spent his or her entire life working for one publisher, and that publisher dries up, fires you, or goes out of business.
Right. Sure. No, I get that part, but the fact of everything being consolidated into one place like that, I think there was a benefit to that, which you're alluding to, Mike, by saying that now when we have the merchandise separated from the comic books, for the comic book shops, they got to go to 2 different places. And I know I know the emergence of Lunar and the and Penguin Random House being an option as well has made life for comic book shops more difficult. It was easier.
The transition has made it difficult.
Well, it was easier for them to order,
right?
And
also, as Tyler rightfully pointed out, we don't know what's going to happen next. How do you plan for the future if your distribution is up in the air? And also, I can say the same thing about printing. And I think tomorrow is the day I should say it. Today is the day.
Tomorrow is Liberation Day.
Tomorrow's Liberation Day. Oh my God! Yeah, I wonder how they feel about that in France.
Tomorrow, we're not going to use paper anymore because it's going to be too freaking expensive because it's all coming from Canada.
Yes. When I was working with the Chicago Tribune, the Tribune Tower was on the Chicago River, and boats came from Canada down the St. Lawrence Seaway to the Chicago River to drop off more paper than I've ever seen in my life every day. Now newspapers aren't newspapers anymore, and very few of them still exist. And whereas, like, I bitch about it, I cry about it, and I miss it. It's ancient history.
I was thinking about you and that recently because I rewatched The Fugitive over the weekend, and it's such a love letter to the city of Chicago. And there's a lot of scenes where people are looking at newspapers, and I'm like, this is all Mike. All Mike in this movie.
Yeah, it's an old movie.
It's not that old. It's not that old. It features one of my favorite fictional characters. Sam Gerard is a fantastic character.
Oh yeah, and a real interesting take. But maybe we should talk about some stuff that was around when Tyler was alive.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I'm getting
Tyler knows where the Fountain of Youth is.
I'm sorry?
I said Tyler knows where the Fountain of Youth is. He's not as young as he looks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's cool.
I just look a lot older than I am.
You do.
That's true.
I am just as old as I look.
I don't know about that. Let's talk about something else. Here's something I want to talk about with you, and this is something that I want to give you an opportunity. This is time for Tyler to talk. I want you to talk about why am I not sharing this? Oh, I want to go here. I want you to talk about Mezzo.
Okay.
Mezzo is how many issues of Mezzo have come out? There's been three different volumes, right? Or three different arcs.
I mean, we're in the middle of the third volume. So we had 2 full volumes come out. The first one was The Rise of the Zalakul, which introduced the series and the characters. Then The Battle of the Koban Rock, which is the first issue of, was the middle one. And we're sort of smack in the middle of the final arc of the initial trilogy anyway. Because even though I would like to wrap it up in sort of a trilogy, I want to keep it going from there. Sort of like Star Wars or things like that, This is the first issue of The Trial of Rodin, Volume 3. We're in the middle of issue 3 of that. Val Rodriguez, the artist I was working in, took a break. He's taken 2 breaks now. He took one to do a natural order for Vault, which came out and is finished.
I loved.
Oh, great. Yeah. That was a good series. And then he has a new one about to come out, which he's just about to finish. So we're going to get back to, we have like 10 pages of number 3, and then we'll finish up 4 and 5 to get volume 3 done. The Pale Knight by Mad Cave, coming out through Mad, which Peter Milligan is working on. So, I mean, when I heard he got a chance to work with Peter Milligan, who I love.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. And so there was a good opportunities, and you want to work with an artist when you're doing indie things, but you know that they're going to get gigs, especially if you get somebody who's really coming up and is going to get noticed, because I'm sure he got noticed with Mezzo. Caught people's attention, so he started getting these gigs. But yeah, Word Volume 3, I think it's just the best one yet. Val continues to get better, and as he's been putting into this work, and really love the way that it wraps up. So I'm excited. I think we're gonna be able to finish up this summer and have the complete trade paperback out in the fall.
What
So,
is what is Mezzo for people who haven't?
okay, so yes, yeah, you're right. We should bring it up for everybody. The short of it is that it's a Mesoamerican inspired fantasy epic, right? So you take something like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, and rather than being Anglo-Saxon, based, even though they're fantasy, this is more Mesoamerican. So you take the culture, society, mythology of Aztecs, Maya, Inca, things like that. All of which I researched and put together in the pot, made a concoction of it, and so this isn't like historically based. It's I mean it's historically like researched and based in that sense, but it's very fantasy and mythological creatures, magic, things like that. So it's high fantasy. Um, so it has that feel to it. It's centered around a lot of religion and the eclipse and that sort of thing. Like that's a lot of the motives. um, there's catastrophes that happen, like the eruption that happened 12 years ago that sent a lot of this into motion. It created a sort of a society of orphans that escaped one city that was destroyed by a volcanic eruption, and pushing them into these other warring tribes really set everything into motion that we see happen in these 3 volumes.
But it also exists in a trend that you seem to have wrapped yourself in, which I appreciate, which is of taking other cultures, non-white American cultures, and hipping people to them. Right. I studied Latin America history in school back in the 1820s, and it was fascinating and beautiful and unworldly to me growing up in the Midwest. It's not quite like Peru, and I thought it was just rich for storytelling, and yet it's you've tapped into it. A few other people have tapped into it in this country, and I want to see more.
Yeah, no, I think there should be more. It did seem like there was a couple things popping up a bit more. Somewhere around after we got the first volume, I started seeing some things pop up through other companies. I think Image had a title, Scout had a couple, and I was like, okay, that's good. Like let's all
right.
Keep it going. It feels like it's died down a little, including ours kind of slowed up. So I'm really excited to get it out there and have like a complete trilogy and keep that going. And maybe we'll see some other people start doing some more as well.
You
because
bet.
Absolutely rich. It's funny that what we've been learning about those societies, especially the Mayan societies, has really increased a lot in the last 40, even 20 years with satellite technology. They've been able to find new sites and ruins, and computer technology has helped them translate the hieroglyphics so that they understand a lot more. We've really learned a lot in just even the last couple decades.
It's true, and that pace picks up.
Mm-hmm.
You got to run faster and harder to keep up with it, which I find to be a very pleasurable experience because I want to know more. Some people, of course, get annoyed by that, and I get that. I understand. Stay still. I need to wrap my brain around you.
Yeah. True. So
we're gonna get to a couple other things, but I want to let's talk about Ithacon just for a bit, because all 3 of us will be in each other's presence in just a few days. It's this weekend. Ithacon, for people who don't know, which if you're watching the show, I don't know how you don't know, is one of our favorite times of the year. It's a great convention in Ithaca, New York, which is gorgeous, and it is it's run by the students of Ithaca College under the mentorship of our good friend Ed Cato. I'm sure Ed is full on in panic mode right now, as we expect. I can't wait to see him on Friday, and just he'll be running around crazy trying to get the kids to know what they're doing. It's such a fantastic experience. You went there last year. Was that your first time last year?
2 years. No, I've done 2 years. So this will be
2 years in a row. Yeah. So and you're coming back for third year. So what's your experience? Like, we've talked about it a lot, but what do you think about the show?
I really like the energy. It is a small show, but people
Yeah.
are there for comics,
Yes.
students. They're really curious minds, want to learn more, really love comics. So
A lot of families too.
yeah, yeah, some families from the community. Yeah, just great energy, great space too. Like that makes a big difference too. It's a really nice university building, and the area that it's in is really nice. So
Yeah, we've been into we've been to other shows that are real small shows, and I think that the space can always be when you're trying to shoehorn a
mhm,
con into a place that's not necessarily built for that
yeah,
can be challenging. And I think that they do a really good job of having a good room, having good
mhm,
access to panel rooms. The panel rooms are really nice and comfortable.
right.
Um, the access in and out is really works well. I want to so just run through some of the people who are going to be there. There's got
Mhm,
Matt Bors is going to be there.
mhm,
Um, who's writing Chris Condon. This guy, Mike Gold, will be there.
oh, mhm.
Dino's
I
coming
need to
back.
shave.
And Don McGregor, yeah.
McGregor, I believe, is still on. This is new. I hadn't seen that Bill was going to be there. Did you know that, Mike?
No, I did not. I was about to say something to the effect of, "This is new."
Yeah. Well,
I
that's
haven't
interesting.
seen. I have funny stories about Bill,
I'm sure you
um,
do.
but I haven't seen him for like, I don't know, 10 years maybe,
Well,
and
good.
it'll be fun. That's fun.
That will be fun. Louise and Walter, of course, Don
Yep,
Simpson, longtime guests, and Roger Stern.
mhm,
And there's a bunch of other people. Hoy Comics is going to be there on Saturday. Bill Anderson typically there. Pete Carl. Look, Tyler Chintanner, he'll be there.
right.
Excellent. Uh,
Yes.
it's a lot of fun. All the people who are there are fantastic. It's a great experience. We have a great time. I want to also let people know that there's a whole kind of hang on here. I need to see this properly. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on during the day in terms of panels. There is one, I believe it is on Saturday at 2:30.
Mhm,
This is, if I can see this right. Yep, Saturday at 2:30. Look at this comic book industry health check. Which me and Tyler is going to be there. So
yeah,
we're gonna have an opportunity to talk with some other people. Following that, on Saturday is a on target with Green Arrow, managing the Emerald Archer with
yeah.
Chris Condon and Mike Gold, moderated by me. So that should be fun, wrangling the two of them.
We'll just be
But it's
talking about you, Bob.
we're not gonna we're it's not gonna be that. I have a lot of work to do between now and then. Prepare for that one. That's probably the one I have the most work to do to prepare for. Um, but it's going to be fun. We like we want to highlight it. It's important if you're anywhere in the upper Pennsylvania, New York area, go find some time. It's cheap, as cons go. It's a fun time. When you do quite a few shows during the year as a publisher,
Mhm,
how do you approach a show for your you know um for a publisher of your size?
yeah.
What do you approach? What do you look for? And does it change from show to show? Does it change from year to year? Has it changed over the years?
Yeah, I think I mostly look. It has definitely changed over the years as the landscape has sort of changed. Uh, I try to avoid things that just end up being more like just pop culture shows or just like some of the local shows. You think, oh, great, it's local community, but it's almost more of just like something for the family to do and swing by, and they're not really there to like find new comics. They're just like here to see the sites and things
Sure.
like that. But sometimes you'll find a local one that's great and some people that are starved for comic books because there aren't many in their area. So you almost have to try them out. Like you have to try some shows out just to find out like, oh, this is a great one. And then you stick with that one or you eliminate one. Now, if you can figure that out beforehand, that helps. So you can save on the travel costs or the time and
Right.
things like that. But also I do try to ones that are different feels, like, like Heroes Con and Baltimore Con are like the big ones that I like to go to. They're not big in terms of San Diego and New York, but in terms of like comic book shows, like those are the ones to do. So then I can bring everything and just fill up the table, and 20 years of publishing the old books or the new ones. Where if I'll do smaller ones, sometimes I'll just have like a table. So I'll bring mostly the stuff that I've written, rather than try to represent everybody, or the new books or things like that. And mostly I just try to meet people, new readers. I don't do a hard sell, which is why it was tough, in Artist Alley when I was coming up in the business, because I couldn't really compete with the carnival barkers very well, which is why I like to have like my nice publishing booth now. So like I can do sales pitches, I can talk to people, but I kind of need them to like wander up first and have a look. And I just want to talk to them about comics. When you meet people, where they're at, what do they like? Have they read? Is this going to be their first comic book? Or is it their, 200th comic book? What are they into? We have some good content for people that have not read comic books before. So, if I can do anything, just get somebody more aware of comics or who we are as a company, regardless of how much they buy at the show. A lot of it is just getting people more aware of what we do. And it's good to get out there. We spend so much time in our studios that it's just nice to see people, whether they're creators or fans.
I way prefer smaller comic book shows with a tighter comic book focus.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One is that I'm tired of getting slammed in the head by people's backpacks, but also because I can get to know the fans better. I could have a conversation with a kid who's a fan, whose parents are fans of different things, and how the kid's adolescent rebellion goes against that. And this is just so cool, and you walk away with all these great ideas like, well, there's this project I've wanted to do for 1,000 years, and this guy seems like he'd like it, so it's reaffirming, and it always gives me energy. But the big shows, I've got a cane, and I'm really afraid that I'm going to whop somebody's head off when he slams into mine. So, I got to be cool.
And in the big shows, you can have like 2,000 people go by their table, but you're not sure how many of them even read comic book or there for comics, right? I've had great locations at San Diego, New York Comic Con, and just have masses of people just pushing each other to get through because they're running to some special event or to get some exclusive. And I'm like, that doesn't do me any good.
And heaven forbid your table should be next to, a superstar's table.
Right. Yeah.
Even when that superstar is a friend of yours, which has happened to me on a great many occasions. And it also happens in smaller shows, but at least you can manage it. You can deal with it,
Yeah.
So I look forward to Jessica. I look forward to Baltimore. And I don't fly anymore, so I don't do that, and I can't drive up to Toronto right now because I'm scared to.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I fly very little. I mean, I will make a trip out to the West Coast here and there, but that's not mostly if I can drive, like I drive to Heroes Con, drive to Baltimore, to Ithacon, things like that.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. So there's a fun part about Tyler that I love is that you get excited about shows not just for you as a Weebly World, but as for Tyler the fan. Like you always bringing stuff. What are you excited for Ithacon?
Man,
you bringing stuff, right?
Yeah, some stuff. I'm excited to see Roger Stern. I really loved his Avengers run with Buscema and Tom Palmer.
Yep. That was the first Avengers that I read regularly.
Me too. Yeah. With She-Hulk and Black Knight and stuff.
Yep. Black Knight. I like Black Knight a lot.
Oh, you know what I'm gonna do?
Dr. Druid and
exactly. What a cool team. It was really neat to see.
One of the most underrated writers in the history of our media.
I would say that.
And he does not get the respect he deserves. I only see him at Ithaca, actually.
I see him at Terrificon.
I'm sorry?
I see him at Terrificon as well.
Oh, yeah, Terrificon.
Oh yeah. I for some reason don't do terrific.
So yeah, I'm gonna get him to sign my Avengers, the border one, the Black Knight cover that had the
Nice.
25 anniversary, and I
love
want to
this.
get him to sign the first Photon Captain Marvel. You know, she was called Captain Marvel back then, but she became the
Yes.
Photon because he created that in a Spider-Man annual with John Romita. So if I can get those two comics signed by him, that would be amazing. Don McGregor, who did the Jungle Action, I have that whole run of Jungle Action. I'll probably get a collection signed by him. Oh, I gotta get Wheezy, Louis Simonson to sign some stuff. I know Walt probably have a huge line. Maybe I'll wait in that. Maybe I won't. But if I could
Well,
get
Sherry's running their lines, so
who is?
Sherry is.
Oh, she's running their line.
Yeah.
If
So
they
you're
do,
saying she'll sneak Tyler in?
yeah, if she can sneak me in.
I'm just saying, you know who to talk to.
Okay, yeah, maybe I will because I want to bring some X Factor that they worked on together. But if I just get Wheezy's signature too, that would be fine. I actually saw them at a wedding last year, and it was funny because Wheezy was sitting next to Larry Hama, and I was like, "Oh my God, Louis Simonson and Larry Hama! I want to like sit down and chat with them." And her first response was, "Oh, Walt's talking to people. He'll be back shortly." And I'm like, well, I mean, Walt's great. I would love to talk to him, but I wanted to sit down and talk to you too.
I agree.
So, yeah,
I often fanboy out in front of Louise too much, too hard.
yeah.
I trick bagged my daughter into meeting her.
Mhm.
We were at some convention, and Wheezy was standing right behind us.
Oh, hey, sure.
And, I knew that Adrian's idol is Louis Simonson, and she gets very embarrassed when I pull this stunt. So of course I'm going to do it all the time because I'm a good father. And I had her turn around. I said, "Don't look behind you," which is the easiest way to get somebody to turn around, because there's somebody there I think you want to meet. And she immediately turns around, and I point to Wheezy, and I invite her over, and I said, "Louise Simonson, Adrian Nash, she's a big fan of yours."
Mm-hmm.
And Adrian hates me to this day for having done that to her, but she loves it.
Right.
So, I've known Wheezy. I have a picture of me in a tuxedo and her in a formal dress at a party at John Burns' house in 1986.
Oh, wow.
And I'd already known her for 10 years by that point.
Mm-hmm.
So pop culture stuff. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
You grew up reading comics, obviously. You know, those were important parts. What was the first comic that really grabbed you and said, this is something I need to do more of?
It was Batman Annual Number 8 by Trevor Von Eden and Lynn Varley. The cover of that, it was the first time, so I was 8 years old. It was the first time that it made me realize that these are artists like making creative choices. Like, because I'd known Batman just from, Underoos and everything. And so comics were just sort of like more of that same thing. And just looking at that cover and then reading inside of it, it was just so different. It was so vibrant. That I was like, oh, it like made me realize, oh, this is an artist sitting down and drawing Batman his way, and making his own creative choices, and that one just really stuck with me and just turned something in my mind. Probably the one after that. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah,
and I actually own the original art to that cover.
What'd you say?
I own the original art to that cover.
You do?
No kidding.
Go pull it over. I can put it in the camera. And the one after that was probably G.I. Joe 21, which I think everyone knows, the silent issue.
Sure.
I'll really just change some things. You want me to grab that real fast? Is that cool?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'll pull it off the wall because I love it.
So, while he's gone, I'll fill in. There's another silent issue one-shot G.I. Joe coming out tomorrow. That Image is putting out in their run. It is called, oh my gosh, that is insane.
Excuse me while I gasp.
Hang on a second. Yeah, I need to go in the solo layout. Holy cow. That's fantastic.
I've been a friend and fan of Trevor's since his first published page at DC.
Oh yeah.
And I've watched this. He was 16 at the time. And I've watched him grow and develop as an artist, and he is so good. He's mystifying.
Yeah. Yeah, he did some Green Arrow too. It was a good.
He did.
Yeah.
He did a wonderful miniseries on Green Arrow. He did Black Canary for me. He did just wonderful stuff. Just wonderful
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Lightning,
Really.
of course.
So I've had a chance to tell him that story. That like he was the one that just made me realize and put it someplace down safely before I hang it back up. Don't fall over. Yeah, that I mean, yeah, I got to meet him at a convention and tell him that story, and that was the one that I just stared at it and just made such a big difference. And,
That's
really,
awesome. I remember that cover. I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, me too. Meeting people who have entertained you so greatly and opened up your consciousness to different things. That's a wonderful experience. It's a mandatory experience for a creative person to meet other creators who've been through it. I mean, one of the first name artists I ever met was Al Williams, and I thought, what a great place to start.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm an old EC guy too. Have grown up just after the line was canceled. So I had a lot of older friends who had them. It's like, oh, look at this. It's like we thought it was pornography in those days.
Oh yeah.
Because of Wortham,
Yeah. So yeah, I've had a ton of fun meeting pretty much all of my heroes. Probably a couple here or there that I never got a chance to meet, but like the Pennies, I don't know if you can see behind me, my ElfQuest drawing. I've got a Joe Kubert and a Wendy Penny over there.
Wendy's.
Yeah.
We owe so much to Wendy.
So
any independent publisher, self-publisher.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big influence.
Richard, a debt of gratitude.
With ElfQuest, and I've told this story before, but I don't know if I told you. So ElfQuest was important to me besides the love I have for the characters that were created. But I remember reading ElfQuest, and I bought it when Marvel was reprinting it in the Epic line.
That's how I bought it.
And I remember, and I would always go get them as much as I could. I've since gone back and got all of them, and I have the complete ElfQuest first epic volume of from Dark Horse, like holding up a monitor over here. But when I was reading it and I opened the page and I saw the credits and it says written and drawn by Wendy Penny, I'm like, a woman drew this and wrote this. That was the first time that I remember, I remember being aware of not just some guy in some behind a desk or something like that. It was like, it kind of changed my perspective on comic book creators in general, but also the fact that I was excited that there was a woman who was telling her story. And I remember being a young kid and being very excited about it.
Yeah.
It's also the first comic that I evangelized to people. I got other people to read comic books because of it.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was my first non-superhero. Unless you count G.I. Joe as superhero or not. But
no, I could say that. I could see that.
Yeah.
I had a different reaction to reading that first Fantasy Quarterly, I think it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh my God, look, a woman's in this, although that was very rare. It was not completely rare. Oh my God, Red Sonja did this.
But we did not have that experience, and I will not qualify it. I will just say experience that you had. I know that Adrian has had that experience. And so, yeah, that's fantastic. I'm super, super happy that she had that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what we're talking about, right, Tyler?
The Red Sonja?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've seen pictures.
There are pictures.
Yeah.
I was there at the
Nice.
Suicons. Frank Thorne, by the way, was just one of the nicest human beings ever.
Yeah, I'm
Also
sorry I
gifted
didn't get
and
to.
talented. Yeah. Oh my God, what a wonderful guy. And I love his stuff. Not just Red Sonja, but it'll always be my favorite Red Sonja.
Mm.
So
Are you reading other current people's stuff out there? Do you continue to
Yeah,
consume comics on a regular, modern comics?
I wish I could read more than I am, but yeah,
Sure.
no, I pick
Listen,
up.
I have read piles that are long
Yeah.
boxes long,
Mhm.
but is there something out there that gets you that you want people to read? That's maybe not a Wave Rule World, or maybe a Wave Rule World people haven't read.
No, I mean, I'll take that. It's funny because I read so many independent series and they tend to
Mhm.
be like short and then all of a sudden they're over. Um, I just picked up Crush Depth, which I think is a Mad Cave one,
Mhm.
and Daniel
I haven't read
and
that one.
TB
I
Andrews.
have it, but I haven't read it yet.
It was really exciting. Yeah. I mean, I was buying it just because I knew those guys and I knew they would write a good tale for sure. But like if I had picked that up fresh, I would have been like, oh wow, this is really exciting. The
Is
underwater
that something
adventure was
how is that experience? Like I have that experience. A lot of times I'll pick up books because I know the people writing, or I know them personally, or I'm very familiar with what they are. And I pick up a book because I know that I want that. I know
yeah.
that these people have rewarded me in the past, or I
Yep.
want to support them.
Yeah.
And very often I'm rewarded by the experience.
Yeah.
Very rarely that it's not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because mostly I choose that. Maybe I got to know them at conventions or something like that, but it's because I like their work. So
Right.
rarely when I say somebody's my friend and that's why I read their book, do I mean that I'm friends with them despite not really liking or being
Right.
before them. It's more of that like, oh no, I'm just big fans. Like
Right.
Chris Condon we were talking about. I just met him at the Ithacon last year. So now
Right.
I'm
Right.
reading his where I read his, his collections of what was that series called? That he
That Texas Blood
the Texas Blood series, yeah.
is really good.
Um, yeah, it's great when they deliver because it does kind of suck when you're like, oh, I really like this person and I like them personally and I like their work and got their new one and I just couldn't really get into it. Sometimes that happens, but it's fine. We're all sort of hit or miss, but most of the time, it's really good. It comes through, so um, I dig it.
actually, when I read something done by a person whose work I really enjoy, but that particular project didn't quite work for me, I
Yeah,
find that interesting.
yeah,
Why does that not work for me when I like all this other stuff?
yeah,
And that's applying critical thinking not only to comics but to yourself. You're
right.
shrinking yourself at that point.
Is it me? Is it me? Is that why it's not working? Right.
Right.
That's exactly right. I love this guy's stuff. How come this isn't connecting? Well,
Yeah.
that's what happens every time you go up to the plate. You bend over and pray for the best.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that's the metaphor.
It was well chosen.
Yeah. Well, I love Ram V's stuff, but I don't read any of his mainstream stuff. And when I tried, I couldn't really get into the superhero stuff. But like Rare Flavors and
Many
Layla
Deaths of
Starr and
Many Deaths of Layla Starr is fantastic.
yeah,
Just
and
absolutely.
D Savage Shores was one of my favorites. I've read a little bit. Like I like the Batman just fine, but many of them I don't know. Maybe that's just not my world for me. I prefer the independent stuff anyway. But so sometimes
Well,
it's
so here's a perfect example of talking about Rom, right?
yeah.
There's a new book coming out this week. It's in the new number ones. If you go to popculturesquad.com, you can see that. There's a new book coming out. It's Resurrection Man, Black Label by Rom V. And if there's anybody who's going to bring back Resurrection Man, I would think he might be the one to do it, right? Especially considering the Layla Starr stuff and his experience with things like that, and even Rare Flavors. Like it just feels like it's something that would be in his wheelhouse. So I'm interested in giving that a shot.
Okay, yeah. I'll look that up for sure.
But you see, I wanted to write more Detective Chimp.
Well, we all want more Detective Chimp. I think there should be an ongoing Detective Chimp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't think anybody has the guts.
Yeah.
I mean, James had him pretty much as a main focus in Justice League Dark, right?
Yeah.
That was
Which
probably
I
one of
love.
his. I loved too. I don't think he wasn't really part of Shadow Pact, but that was also good. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, Detective Chimp is fantastic. Can't get enough of that. Are you listen, Mike is a huge Gorilla Comics fan. Do you have a thing, Tyler, where is there a theme about comics that like attracts you? Like sometimes people have things about kaiju. Mike has a thing about Gorilla Comics. Sometimes people have Jungle Comics things. Is there something, or is it? Are you? Do you have like a thing that you like? Are you a horror guy?
No, I don't really. I mean, sometimes I like horror. I really like um, fantastical take off of historical fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, anything that was a historical period, like really happened, but there's just more like a fantasy take. I don't know. I mean, you go back to like
Like
Usagi.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen kind of thing.
But then like These Savage Shores, which was about colonization of India. But of course, let's throw some demons and vampires in there. Like
Right.
that's pretty neat. I like that.
That's awesome. That's a great thing. There's plenty of that.
There is now. It used to be against the code.
Oh, did it?
Vampires were not allowed.
You couldn't do like vampire stories, or at least you had to be.
Well, how did we do iVampire? How did we get iVampire then?
Yes, you had to be very careful, and they couldn't have done it 10 years earlier. There's no
Tomb
way.
of Dracula, same.
I'm sorry?
Couldn't have done Tomb of Dracula in the 70s, in the 60s?
I don't know. It would have been tough, but I'd have to ask Marv about what it is he did have to put up with.
I'm sure.
Because that's when it was a
that has to go on the next conversation we have with Marv.
Yeah. Well, get him out to Baltimore. We'll have another lunch.
Sure. I'm up for that. He was supposed to come last year. We had a whole plan.
Yeah, well, so was I.
That's true. So what else is coming? What's the next thing after
so we got
the next
Young Men in Love.
Young Men in Love Volume 2 comes out in June.
It's June, yeah. And then Mezzo Volume 3 is the fall, which I'm excited for. Let's see. I haven't announced them yet, so I can't. I mean, that's all I've got for the rest of this year. And my 2026, I do have all lined up. I have the 4 projects that are coming out.
Projects. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sort of hoping to do like a quarterly schedule, 4 per year, 1 each season. Just makes it easier to focus on one at a time. Well, you have all the different pods going, but like where they are in development, and then you can just focus on that being released for that season, and then wait for the next season so you can put your full focus on that release. So, yeah, I'm excited. We have some sequels, some things that'll be back again, and then some new projects too that I'm really excited for. So, but yeah, sorry. Besides Young Men in Love, New Romance, and Mezzo Volume 3 in the fall. That's all I can really talk about.
That's fine. That's great. Yeah. We're excited. So you'll have to come back next year and later on and talk about more of it. And that'd be wonderful.
It sounds like you have a very busy rest of 2025. Is that what we are? Yeah. It sounds like your plate's pretty full.
Yeah. No, it's going to be pretty full. And we've actually got something coming up this summer, which is not publishing per se, but it's very tied into our career. We're going to be reopening a store space. My wife's parents ran an art store for nearly 50 years, and it closed during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to be reopening it and turning it into like an independent publishing resource center. And we're going to be able to publish and create from there, but also hopefully add an element of like a community hub, because there's so many of those places have closed where creatives can come and meet, and we can have some events.
Is that local to where you are now?
So it's going to be down in Brooklyn.
Oh, in Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to be down there a lot.
That's a perfect place for that.
Yeah, no, it's a great. We just couldn't give up the space.
We should talk to Dean this weekend.
Yeah, we talked to a lot of people down in that area.
It sounds like a phenomenal concept.
Yeah, we
And
really
also
think there's
it's desperately needed.
some really strong possibilities. And the space had been closed for 5 years, and we're like, we got to find a way. They didn't want to sell it because once you can't get properties like that anymore. But we're like, we got there's and it involves so much cleaning because you imagine a 50-year-old art store just packed to the gills of just old, and we're just pulling them out. Like, does anybody even use these anymore? And we didn't want to just turn it into like a used art supply stuff. So we're gonna clean this stuff up. We'll store some of this stuff, but let's get some fresh, get some open tables. I want it to almost feel like an Apple store, in layout, not in devices, but like paper and pencils and pens, and get people in, trying things out. Maybe we'll have some classes. We'll definitely have some events for books that come out. I just want people to come and hang out. Like,
Oh, I
don't
want
even
to come and hang out.
just sit at the tables. Like, I want to get some tables out there and just let people sit and doodle and stuff. And if they want to buy some art supplies, because I mean, I can't compete with the Amazon and stuff like that anyway. But if you get like the user experience, come in, sit down, try things out, hang out for a little while. I think that's a need that it's something that there's a need for. We'll see how economical it works out to be, but I definitely feel like there's a gap there, and that we can fill it. We're in a unique position to fill that. So
That is the greatest announcement I have heard in some time. That is terrific. What sort of like classes were you thinking about?
I mean, we'll start with what I can teach: creating comics, whether it's writing, maybe some basic, sequential art, layouts, how to make your own comic, how to crowdfund, things like that. And we'll see. I mean, there's a little bit of a "if you build it, they will come" thing when people start. We'll
Listen,
figure out.
we don't know enough people in the area who might be willing to come and
There are plenty of folks in that area.
do a live drawing session or something like that.
If I can help out any way, you let me know. That's a
Okay.
really exciting project.
Well, right now I've been going down on the weekends and just cleaning, organizing, figuring out what's trash, what to keep. But yeah, hopefully we're opening in June. So please, it'll be open invite. Please come
Definitely
on.
let us know. We'll publish it as much as we can about it and let people know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
As long as you keep me away from the airfield, I'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. No skydiving. All right. No jumping from planes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Tyler, we're going to see you in a couple of days. We're going
Yeah.
to let everyone go and have a great night, but we're going to let you go. We'll see you on Friday. See you on Friday.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be showing up on Friday. Is there an event going on that evening?
They're probably. I'll text you if whatever.
Awesome.
We'll
Cool.
have some sort of dinner or something because we're hungry.
Yeah, totally. Let's eat.
That's what happens.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing all the great news. Thanks for talking about comics. We love it. We'll have you back soon.
Sounds good.
And we'll see you in a couple.
Yeah, see you in a couple days.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Thank you very much for coming here tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks.
Okay.
It is Tuesday. We have Mike and I have travel plans. Obviously, we're going to leave our respective studios and meet in person. We'll get some pictures. We'll put them out there. We will be back next week. I just want to let you guys know that we have a bunch of stuff going on. Nope, let me get that. We'll talk about it in a minute. So tell me, you have 2 panels this weekend?
3
coming up?
panels.
3 panels. Which
But
are
I'm
the
not
3?
sure which ones.
Yeah,
The
and
only
you
one
got
I
the
remember-
The Green Arrow one is the good one, right? That's I know you have another one. I think I'm only moderating one of them. So that's all good. And this stuff.
Are we on the Ahoy panel this year?
There
We should be.
I don't know if there is an Ahoy panel, but we are not on it. I don't think I can be on it. I think that's cross programming for a couple of things of mine. But but we have some announcements coming up for our guests. Next week we are going to be back after Ithacon. David Peterson is going to be here. We're going to talk about his career. We're going to talk about his new book that just came out a couple like last week, and it's an ongoing. I didn't realize it was going to be at least a miniseries. I thought it was a one shot, so that's a really great. Then we just got booked last night, so we are going to have Philip Sablik and Jeremy Hahn on April 15th, which is the launch night of their first Ignition Press crowdfunded book. So they're crowdfunding their first comic project, and it gets launched on the 15th. And we're going to have Philip and Jeremy on. Jeremy is writing it. Philip is obviously being the Philip about it, but really excited for that.
Didn't they used to be a law firm?
Yeah, Sablik and Hahn, and Rich, Sablik, Rich, and Hahn. There you go. And then the following week, Stephanie Williams is going to be on. Very excited to have her. She is going to be writing another of the upcoming Ignition Press books. So that's interesting. But she's also a fantastic writer in her own right. She her and Leah Williams have considered themselves twinsies, and so we will now have both of the Williams sisters on, at least in spirit. And there's a bunch of other people lined up for later on this spring and summer. So we're going to be here every Tuesday. We have some other things that we might throw in. We might throw a recorded Thursday panel in. Please stay tuned. Follow us. Subscribe wherever you're watching this so that you know when we go live, because we're just here to try and, despite my opening tonight, try to take our minds off the chaos and talk about some fun stuff.
May I plug a book?
You may.
I make no money off of this.
Okay.
Which is a shame, but that's a whole nother story. DC just shipped one of their DC Finest paperbacks, which I think are pretty cool, actually. This one is a collection of Peacemaker stories to tie into that second season of the Peacemaker TV show that won't be on for another 2 years.
Right.
And it reprints almost everything of Peacemaker from Pat Boyette's original stuff. We did a miniseries, Peacemaker miniseries, 4 parts. It was one of my favorite projects at DC. Paul Kupperberg wrote it, Todd Smith drew it. It was just gorgeous. It was wacky. It was apeshit. And by the way, had a lot more to do with how that character developed in the movies and on television than most of the other Peacemaker work. So if you just want to have a wacky, great time, Peacemaker might just fill that bill. Thank you.
So, hang on. So this is the 1988 Peacemaker, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, Todd Smith did the art, right? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this. Yes, I agree. This was that's a turning point in where Peacemaker is today, I think.
Oh, I think that's true. I am enormously proud of that and of its creators. And it was just one of the most fun books to do. I had as much fun doing that, almost as much fun doing that as Wasteland. The only Wasteland was more fun only because it was less predictable. Not that Peacemaker was predictable. Wasteland was less predictable. So I'm really glad to see that out there. That's fun for me. I enjoy that.
I agree. I'm glad. All right. So go get Peacemaker. You can find it at your comic shops in the really cool Finest format. There's a bunch of really cool stuff. This is a really good week. I recommend going to checking out popculturesquad.com and check out the new number ones, because there's a bunch of really interesting things coming out this week, both from bigger publishers and smaller publishers. There's a bunch of stuff I want to read. I'm going to go read as much as I can before I fall asleep tonight. So everybody, thanks for being here. Thanks for continuing to come and support us. We are incredibly thankful, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Tuesday with David Peterson, and we will give you a recap of the adventures in Ithaca.
And we would love seeing as many of you folks as humanly possible at Ithaca this weekend at IthaCon. If you have anything to say about the SquadCast or about Pop Culture Squad or questions or, just dirty jokes or whatever, we're there. And we'd love to hear from you.
Gene's not going to make it this year. Maybe we get Gene up there next year.
We got to get Gene. Oh, we can get Gene anywhere and I'll be there, except for the West Coast.
All right. Everybody, take it easy. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it like you wouldn't believe. See you next week.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?